Hi, guys. Welcome to Real Food Recovery. We have a special episode lined up today, especially for those of you who might be in recovery from the effects of ultra processed foods and want to learn how to better support your body and metabolism. We have a lot to learn today, and we have the perfect guest for that. Anja works with clients to help them heal and thrive, particularly those dealing with the effects of modern, highly processed foods. But before we get into her, I must say hi to my partner in crime, Jamie. How's it going, sister?
Good, good. Happy to be here. Happy to have Anya here. I wanted to just, Anya, verify. I know your beautiful name, Anja. Is it hard J or soft J?
You pronounced it perfectly. Anya,
Perfect.
yep. It's a tricky
Perfect.
one, and I have to tell everyone. So,
It is a, and I have an old friend from Chicago that had a same name, same spelling, and she told me what the history was on her name. It's beautiful. Anya Lee Hall is a chef, wellness entrepreneur, and metabolic health advocate who has built four successful companies all around cooking, quality food, and health. She's currently the co-founder of the Blood Sugar Method, a program to help people improve their blood sugar and metabolic health with holistic long-term practices. And she helps them specifically with PCOS, menopause, pregnancy, GLP-1 use, and HRT, hormone replacement therapy. In addition, Anya previously ran celebrated catering and cooking class companies in San Francisco for 10 years. She's a longtime chef for the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers and other professional athletes. Anya knows firsthand how food fuels performance and longevity. She's also competed and won twice on the Food Network, proving that nutritious eating can be both gourmet and delicious. So we're
Mm-hmm.
very happy to have Anya here. And Paige, I'm sure she's probably a kindred spirit for you.
Yeah, I'm a
Um,
cooker too.
oh,
Anya, how did what brought you to this place in your career? And tell us really, I think, how you've kind of melded these two passions.
oh, well, you're gonna be full of great questions, but I'm excited to start with this one. And thank you again for having me. Sorry, you guys. I don't know if you can hear that background noise, but I'm gonna
No, you're fine.
fast. Okay. It's the only thing I can't figure out how to stop. Very excited to be here. Thank you for asking this fun question to start. So I was passionate about cooking starting at about 10 years old.
Oh,
My grandma, my mom would invite me to the kitchen, and we would have so much fun whipping up, whatever it was. We'd watch cooking shows together. And from then on, it really got me inspired by the idea of food brings people together. I just loved that so much. I thought it was a really magical thing. And I also loved to eat. And as a child, I was not the skinniest of the children on the playground, and I just never really understood why. Why was I born being chubbier than my friends? Why could I not keep up in sports that I wanted to be a part of? And my family was really athletic and outdoorsy, and I just didn't. I didn't keep up. And at about 13 years old, I was introduced to a nutritionist who just helped me with some health stuff, and she showed me what sugars are and protein is and simple things that I didn't understand. And from then on, I started to read books and learn and explore, how to eat a little bit healthier. And I gained control of my body. And I couldn't believe the power that I had when I learned, what these cereals were doing to me that I was eating in the morning every day and all sorts of things. And so that led me to just know that, knowledge is power. I couldn't believe how much I could transform my own health and how much that meant to me. And it no matter what in my life after that, I always shifted back to cooking and cooking healthier and learning more about being healthy. So I have a long journey left and right and up and down, but it's always led me back to that same principle.
Yeah, I love that last sentence. Along, all the different ways our journeys take us, but it leads
yeah.
us back, right? So I love that. Thank you.
It's true. Very true. Yeah.
Were ultra processed foods a fight for you? You talked about from the early age that your body looked a little bit different than the other kids on the playground. Was that part of your early journey?
Absolutely. I mean, my mom is an amazing cook. She'd cook for us pretty much every single night. And it's not like we were drinking even soda at home, but as a typical American family, um, you got to get food on the table and you're buying what's recommended, and marketing is pretty powerful out there. And, think moms think they're doing the best they can and whatnot. And even though we were getting quite wholesome meals, there's so much in your life that is ultra processed that if affects you extremely, again, like that just cereal in the morning,
Right.
or I was growing and I was all of a sudden craving chocolate milk, and so I'd have at least a bottle of chocolate milk a day, and never really occurred to us how much sugar was in those and how much that would affect me. Or so many other things. I mean, you go to the cafeteria at the school, and it's so sad how most of the food comes in a package.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, and that was even in middle school, I was trying to work with the kitchen to figure out if we could figure out a better food program as soon as I started to understand what it actually was. And that's a big overhaul that I didn't realize, it's still a problem today. So
could you? Oh, totally. Oh gosh, we could do a whole episode on school lunches and things like that. Oh, I can't even think about it. But was that a hard transition, or once you started changing, were you all in?
I think once I started changing, I was just more and more knowledgeable. And once you learn the power of what these things do and what good things do, it's just kind of no question, and over time, I'm sure many people in my life think of me as extreme. I don't think of myself as extreme at all. I don't eat those foods are not foods in my mind anymore,
Yeah.
they're not whole foods, they're not real foods, they're processed foods, and to me that's just not edible. And so I think more and more I just kind of saw it as that, you
That
know.
mindset is, I think that mindset is what frees people from those old tapes or those old um desires, or them thinking of, why can't I eat that, or why can everyone eat that and not gain weight, and
Yeah.
I eat that and I gain weight. It does, because it sounds like you and I have, metabolism that's similar. And there are times when I choose, to have those foods, and I know what they'll do. And then there was a long period of time, many years, where those foods were on the, just the do not fly list, so to speak. And it was much easier to think of them as like they're not even food. It was much easier. It totally rewrote the script.
Absolutely. And good for you. And it takes practice, and it takes
Yeah. And knowledge and choices and consequences of choices, good
and
or
paying
bad.
attention to those consequences. If you really acknowledge, like, wow, I ate that thing and it really doesn't feel good, or I got tons of acne the next day,
Mhm.
or I didn't really sleep very well. Like, those aren't great feelings. And so that 10 minutes of eating something that may taste delightful in the moment, but then the hours and hours after or days after that you don't feel great. Like, to me, it's such an easy choice. And there are great foods that you can have in place of those. You just have to be okay with giving up that, like, nostalgia, like the
Mhm.
nostalgia for a hot dog here and there. If you want to go for it, go for it. Like, if that's what makes you happy, then do it. But if you're okay with creating new nostalgias and creating new things, then it's going to lead to feeling really good and being happy afterwards.
Right.
Well said.
I love what you said about some people might call me extreme, and Jamie has a famous line that I love. She said she has talked about some people may call this extreme, but what I think is extreme is getting your heart cracked open and having bypass surgery, or losing your health in some way. That's extreme. So I don't know how to make it to where people don't look at what we're doing as extreme. I think we're just looking at what we're doing is smart, because what you just said, I don't want to feel bad later. I mean, I would love to, have a half a gallon of ice cream every night too, but I don't want to feel better, worse psychologically, mentally, spiritually, all those areas of my life that it affects. And so when we work with people that are suffering from the effects of ultra processed food and trying to help them recover from that, we try to stay in that future self mind thinking. Don't think about, okay, I just want. Uh, we had another client who would say, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so staying in that future self-mind thinking is where our protection lies and where that adult part of us is running the show. So I don't know if do you work with people on trying to get off the ultra processed foods, or are you mostly in the recipe development and chef world?
I'm working with people in all categories of our program. So, I see everything from start to finish, including talking to them before they even sign up and hearing about all the, everything they're going through. Um, so yes, I agree with all of that. I know it's not an easy process though, and
Agree.
it takes a lot of practice and a lot of understanding and people to do it with too. Like I think one of the most powerful things
Yes.
I've seen in the last few months with the blood sugar method program is that our community, once they found other people going through something similar, they are so active in the chat and they are cheering each other on. And
Mm-hmm.
I never in a million years thought that would happen. Not everyone, but being able to find people to relate to and stuff like that, there are a lot of ways that can slowly help them. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. I also want to add, Paige, because what you're mentioning about maybe, you shouldn't do something. There is the mentality of pain is gain, and that is kind of true. I think some people, are searching for comfort all the time and like
Mhm.
always trying to find that like, things are easy, but really when we work out it's a little bit painful, but then the benefit is so much greater,
Oh, right.
Yes. A
or
great,
like
great
just
metaphor.
just getting up to get out of your house, sometimes that can be painful, but then as soon as you start walking, you feel the best you've ever felt,
Mhm.
that day or whatever. So I think with food, we often think, I don't want to give up that thing that I really love. At the beginning, it might feel a little bit painful because it might feel like giving up, but quickly you can find that you're actually just adding in other things that actually make you feel better and you gain so much more. So it's switching that mindset of like, it's okay if it feels a
Right.
little bit painful in the beginning because the benefits outweigh the costs.
Yeah, I've talked to many clients about that, when I was doing coaching at first, because a lot of times when I was first coaching years ago, it was all around, weight loss and nutrition and I would talk about don't think about what you're giving up. Look at, there's tons of things you're adding
Yes.
to your food to to bring nutrients and fiber and water and energy and electrolytes and there's wonderful things that you're adding and look at what you're getting, right? So I flipped that script too for them and talked about what you're getting. Um,
Absolutely.
and that
Yeah.
again, it's sometimes I don't get me wrong, I'm big on rewording self-talk and incremental gains and small baby steps add up to big changes. I'm all those things are true. And sometimes we have to flip the script on its end and go the opposite way like this example or like the example earlier we were talking about where it is not food. It's actually, it is poisonous or it is, you know, um, substances that our bodies don't know what to do with. And if we're going to choose
Mm-hmm.
to eat them, there are consequences that come with these choices and
Mm-hmm.
they may not all show up on the scale, but
Mm-hmm.
there are consequences here.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that really fascinates me about your story and your history is understanding how you work with women in that menopausal period, women that have challenges with their hormones, right? Even if it's during their reproductive years with PCOS, pregnancy, and then perimenopause. What does that look like when you work with women in those arenas?
Yeah, great question. The big picture is that we focus on blood sugar health, which is a massive part of everyone's health from the moment, they're in the womb to when they're gone. And blood sugar can connect to everything in your body from cognitive health to heart health to how you're creating energy to how energy is stored and weight and mood and whatnot. But sugar works directly with your hormones and particularly one hormone, insulin, and that helps figure out how to make it to simplify it. it works with it so that your body knows how to process it. Now, hormones are all very connected. And so when we're going through massive hormonal changes as women in our life, we feel the effects of the hormone changes more intensely. And if we're not eating for blood sugar health, if we're, eating too much sugar, too much ultra processed foods, at one time, carbs and no protein, fat, or fiber, things like that, it's all connected and it massively exacerbates your symptoms. So we're not saying you can completely get rid of symptoms. Aging is not going to be totally easy.
Oh, sorry.
Sadly. But I like that. I like that they give you a laugh.
Yeah.
But it can be, balanced a little bit more if you are able to feed yourself foods that are nourishing and are keeping your blood sugar stable. And so that's something that we've learned a lot about over the years in studies, and there's a lot of studies out there that are proving this, and we're seeing massive results with our members too. So yeah.
Yeah, because you really focus a lot on getting off the blood sugar roller coaster, right? Do you want to talk about that a little bit? How that
Please.
so many things that that blood sugar roller coaster impacts, and maybe if you want to even address like the carbs, because some people are like carb phobic and some people are all about carbs. So all of that kind of is one big question. I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. So when you say the blood sugar roller coaster, this is something that we're hearing more and more about. It's describing the big spikes and crashes in blood sugar that happen when we eat things like ultra processed foods or too many refined carbs. And so if you were to have a continuous glucose monitor, which are becoming more and more popular, if you
Mm-hmm.
have diabetes, a lot of people are wearing them, or if you're to take your blood sugar level at, take readings of it, you would see that typically at different moments in the day, from certain stressful points or physical activity or foods, you see your blood sugar reacts. And sometimes it's your cells feeding you sugar that you have stored, so you have energy for something. And sometimes it's reacting to the food that you're digesting. Um, and so this roller coaster, ideally we want it to stay within a certain healthy range. Everyone's going to
Mm-hmm.
have ups and downs. That's very normal. But unfortunately, because a lot of these foods, the ultra processed foods, and just some foods in our lives today, sometimes carbs, depending on how sensitive we are, if you're eating those too much, too often, not paired with, quality protein, fat, and fiber, something of the sort, it's going to cause your bloodstream to get hit by the
Insulin.
yeah, well, the sugar, the blood sugar, the glucose
Yeah.
too fast.
Mm.
And soon, every time you have that surge and insulin comes in to try to help you process that sugar and know what to do with it, if it has too much and it's getting overwhelmed, that hormone insulin stops working. It starts resisting. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's that roller coaster is if you're going too high up and rocking too far down, or you're staying high for too long, and you can see it on graphs if you use a CGM, then that's when it can be pretty harmful to your cells, because that sugar goes directly to your cells instead of to somewhere where it can be used,
Mm-hmm.
for energy.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's a little bit about the roller coaster, which again, once your insulin becomes less responsive, um,
It's a
it
bad deal. Yeah.
yeah, well, it leads to weight gain, which none of
Yeah.
us want. Constant fatigue,
Mm-hmm.
burn cravings that we all know, because once we get used to that, our body for some reason wants more of it, and it gets worse and worse.
Right.
And then it can lead to bigger problems, like obviously type 2 diabetes, heart disease, even cognitive decline like dementia.
Totally.
So it's all connected. Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah.
I can continue going about carbs, but do you guys
Sure.
have questions?
Unless Jamie, are you okay?
No, no, please. Well, I think because the way that you relate carbs to a lot of these other conditions, and again, we're not demonizing carbs.
No.
Spoiler alert, we're not
Yeah.
demonizing carbs. So go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so carbs, there are some carbs that are considered like good carbs and bad carbs, right? So those typically will point towards whether the carb is paired with fiber and it's in more as its natural state, versus highly processed carbs. So an example of a good carb would be like a beans, lentils, grains that still have their husk, things like that, and a bad carb would be something like all-purpose flour or cane sugar, um,
Mm-hmm.
that are so refined, they're so stripped of anything that might
Mm-hmm.
be helpful. So when we're digesting food, like I said, we don't want to overwhelm our insulin too fast. So if you can pair a carb with protein, fat, and fiber, healthy fat and fiber, then it slows the digestion down and gives your body time to figure out what to do with it. But these bad carbs, these ultra processed carbs, they process too quickly in our body, causing that spike.
Yeah.
Uh, so carbs, though, unfortunately, even though they're not always the enemy and they come in a lot of vegetables that we eat today and fruits and things like that, but the problem is that some people now are so sensitive to any carbs because they've been overwhelmed too many times by all the ultra processed foods that they've eaten, that even small amounts of carbs like a sweet potato
Mm-hmm.
or a grain, or something like that, can be can cause them to have a massive spike still. So when we're working with our members, we're trying to help them scale back and test different carbs to learn what works for them and what doesn't. So
Yeah. I know, and I'm glad you're explaining that a little more clearly because I've had people on social media kind of fight me a little bit, put their dukes up. I don't know what you're talking about because everything turns to sugar, and it really doesn't matter what you're eating because since it all breaks down to sugar, your body doesn't know the difference of what, if it's an Oreo or a green bean. And then you have to start in with, that's not true. The fiber and the
yeah,
water and all of that make a huge difference. And the body recognizes it as food and knows what to do with it versus those ultra processed foods where it's like this is an invader. This is an enemy, and the mitochondria in the cell are like, I don't know where to put this, what to do. There's alarm bells going off everywhere. It's amazing, quite frankly, that our bodies even function as well as they do when you do flood them with the ultra processed foods. But eventually, the piper always wants to be paid,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well said.
I think anytime someone is, pushing back on this information, you can always just say, test it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Put on a CGM, put on a continuous glucose monitor, and
Mhm.
see what happens. It's,
Mm-hmm.
again, knowledge is power, and we can't sit and preach to people and expect them to just understand. Um, people who I adore in my life who trust me more than anyone, they don't fully understand
I
all this,
agree.
and I'll have to explain things many times. And even then, it takes a lot to process. And, they'll still eat a lot of those things that maybe, they know aren't that great. So if people see it themselves on their own body, and can, watch that roller coaster or see the difference or feel the difference and identify it, that's when they actually are willing to make the change, and understand.
Yeah, you almost just have to be quiet, right? And just be an example. Unless you know of a better system of handling the people that you love making poor choices. You have any other insight besides just being a good example?
I
Keeping
would
your
try.
trap shut.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that's the hardest part. It truly
Yeah.
is. And it's something where, you love the people in your life so much that you cannot judge and you cannot
Hmm.
sit and critique what they're doing, and they're going to make the choices they make for that reason. Most of the members that come into our program are people that were with a doctor, and the doctor said, guess what? You're pre-diabetic. You didn't know
Yeah.
that, but you are. And so you need to do something about that. And they decide it on their own. And that's just nature's way, right? Is it's not easy to critique the ones we love, and it's not easy to get feedback from the ones we love
Hmm.
either. So yeah, I wish I had a good answer for that. I have so many things I wish I could share with, some people I really love that I think would be really beneficial to them. But at the end of the day, we're all going to live the life we're going to live, and that's our choice. So,
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's right. And choices, we can't control other people. We can't, no matter how much we wish we could sometimes, or want the best for them, or see ways that we could help make their lives better. Ultimately, that's the whole theme of boundaries, right? They stop at the end of our fingers and the end of our toes.
Hmm.
absolutely. Unless their friend is making that decision. So if you can influence one of their friends and then their friends influence them, that works
Potentially,
well.
potentially. So
That's
tell me how you got into, tell the audience really, how you got into this idea of, working with athletic teams, and eventually the Golden State Warriors, Cleveland Cavaliers. How did you, start to work with professional athletes in your catering company?
Oh, and you have to tell Jamie and those listenings about how your teams did versus the other teams. We had a
Yes.
little discussion about that. It's an interesting story.
okay. I got really lucky. And there's always that part, right? I started a catering company pretty much just after college in San Francisco, and I was also teaching workout classes at Equinox Gym in San Francisco part-time to, pay my rent as I was
Hmm.
trying to figure out the catering world. And I was catering because that was something I knew how to do from high school jobs, and I loved it. And so that's all I wanted to do. And quickly, I think like 6 months into having my catering company, picked up the phone, and there on the other side was the head trainer of the Cleveland Cavaliers. And his name's Derek. He is the best, still such a good friend, and just someone I admire more than anything. And he was so kind, and he said, "We're coming to San Francisco for the finals against the Golden State Warriors, and we need, a small, kind caterer who's not going to poison us and who understands healthy cooking really well to fuel our men to victory." And I, of course, jumped at it. Called my mom, who was up in Tahoe, and I said, "How do I do this?" It was a big undertaking. I didn't have a big team or anything at the time. And she said, I'm leaving work right now. I'll call in sick the next few days. I'll be in San Francisco tonight." And the gig was coming fast. It was like the next day. So we then my boyfriend helped, and we got my brother to help, all that stuff, and we cooked for them. But we really focused on their nutrition, and I worked really closely with their trainer on, you know it was low carb, it was low inflammation foods, it was a lot of really important things. And uh, we cooked our hearts out, and we were with them through the entire finals, and they ended up winning, which is pretty darn cool. So I was in their locker room for the champagne showers and holding their
Ah,
trophy. Oh yeah. With LeBron and the full team, and some other
Ah.
some other players who were the coolest. Um, and then we got to know, while we were at the Oracle Arena, which was where the games were that we were cooking, we got to know the Golden State Warriors ball boys, because they would come into our locker room after the Cavs would leave, and they'd eat our leftovers because they liked our food better. Um, and then one of those ball boys I kept in touch with, and he ended up getting promoted to be the manager of the Warriors. And so the next year he called me. I had no idea. Again, shows just, be nice to everyone, and
right.
everyone's important, right? Even the ball boys, who are the best. And he called me and said, "We want you to cater our food. We gotta up our game here." So we cooked for them in the Oracle Arena, and then when they moved to the Chase Center, we were in their locker room and cooking to order. So we were there with Curry and Clay Thompson and the whole team. So um, that's the story.
That is
Amazing.
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 Yeah, it was
Oh
fun.
my goodness. What a ride.
Yeah.
I mean, really, and talk about things sort of unfolding, right? The universe obviously, wanted you in that place, doing this work for those athletes. And what a great story.
Thanks. Yeah.
What are just a follow-up to that, what would you say are some of the maybe biggest, and I don't need names, but some of the biggest wins you had doing that? And I don't mean just, the games, but where did you turn people's hearts or
Oh,
minds?
that's a question I have not been asked. Um, I'd say some of the wins were like when we would sit there and we'd talk to the players about, what they're eating and what they didn't. And, you know, some of this food was too healthy in their opinion because these are guys in their mid 20s. A lot of them coming from home cooking who just want that home cooking, and that's what they're used to. And if they're not eating our food, they're leaving the facility after the game to go hit up In-N-Out or something like that.
Hmm.
So just knowing that they stayed, knowing that they stayed for our food, they hung out, they enjoyed it. We got to chat
Yeah.
with them, learn what they liked and didn't like. I'll never forget. I asked LeBron, you know, what do you want? Because I only get to talk to your trainer. What do you want? He's like, I don't want that rabbit shit. French, yeah.
Oh,
And
that's okay.
and I was like, rabbit shit, okay. And he's like, I want the pasta and the carbs and all the things. And so, we had to try to find a happy medium. But he ended up loving our food and after some time and giving it more time and whatnot. So
That's a great win. That's a
yeah.
great win. And talk about difficult, heart and mind to shift, right? Somebody who has been,
Right.
has been lauded for their decision making for their, most of their adult life, right? And young life, I'm sure, before that. So this person was lauded for the decisions he made and thinks, well, I got to where I am because I've been eating the way I've been eating. And now this person comes in and wants to feed me quote unquote rabbit food. It's one of I don't want to get too specific, but somebody I work with is at my day job as a very high level person in the organization they come to us from another, I would say the gold standard, one of the gold standard hospitals in the country. And this leader comes to us from this gold standard hospital where maybe 2 decades or about a decade and a half ago, they instituted a major change to their food supply and the food that they were feeding their patients at this institution. And we have many major, healthy lifestyle advocates that really just applaud this change, right? For the patients, for the team members eating the food. Like it was a major shift and it was a huge um wake up call to other healthcare institutions across the network to do the same thing. So this leader comes to us from that institution and says, "Oh, they fed us rabbit food. It was horrible." And I'm like looking at them like they changed history in healthcare. Like they
Yeah.
they had the they kicked McDonald's off their campus. Like they took the soda machines out of
Mm.
their hospitals and their break rooms. Like they were like trailblazers. Like, and this was a person, right? This leader that I know sat in executive meetings at that old institution with the trailblazer decision maker doing this. And I thought you were like literally a witness to history. And they didn't, I just said, oh, it was rabbit food. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Good for them for getting that shift because already that's insane. But
Mhm.
also, I mean, that's a great example. Like 85% of US adults aren't metabolically healthy, like they're just not.
Oh, and yeah, unfortunately, this person would
Yeah.
probably fall in that
So the awareness
subset.
level,
Yeah.
got the little shifts, changing their environment, hopefully it will change their mindset going
Yes,
forward.
but it sort of was equated for me anyway, knowing the history of this shift. It is like somebody sitting in the signing of the Declaration of Independence and saying, "Oh, they were just signing some piece of paper. Oh, what a waste of time." Like that's what it felt like. I'm like, "Are you serious?" Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is massive.
it was
Yeah.
massive.
Mhm.
So
That's so
Yeah. And I love the point about whenever you introduce these changes to people, they might be resistant, like LeBron was resistant at first. But as they really open their minds and mouths and give it a true try, their palates change. Don't you agree? Palates change, and you're like, wow, this actually, I'm tasting real food, maybe for the first time or for a very long time. And our taste buds change. We know that that's been scientifically proven as we get off the ultra processed foods. And so that is one of the biggest things. Maybe we'll end with this question is how do you work with people that are so used to the ultra processed foods and we don't ever tell people "Oh, we're going to change everything all at once today. No, you're never going to have that again. We usually lean into it slowly, but how do you work with, where do you start with people to make some of these changes so it is palatable and they aren't overwhelmed by the whole process? Because I don't know if you had a trick that you did with LeBron, but something made him be willing to stick in there and give it a fair shot. And it sounds like he ended up really enjoying it. So, what do you do to make that process with the people you work to where they're not overwhelmed and want to run?
So I will say with LeBron, I think he was partly kidding with me.
Oh,
I think he did like some of the, some of the healthy things he had learned over time. But and I wouldn't say we ever totally changed, teams, but we gave them food that tasted really good, that was also healthy, and that is a big part of it is a lot
which
of
is
the
possible. That
yeah,
Mhm.
I just shout that one for say that again for the people in the back.
I mean, flavor, right? Flavor is a big deal and learning how to cook something correctly. There are so many foods that can't tell you over the years. I've had friends say, "Oh, I don't eat that," or "I don't like that." And maybe I've made it anyway and I've said, "This is for us. You don't have to have any." And they've had some and they've been like, "Okay, maybe I do. I do eat this thing."
Hmm.
An eggplant that they never liked, but now they have it in an eggplant tart that I've made, and all of a sudden they really like it or whatever it might be. So learning how to cook things correctly, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time or effort. It just has to, again, knowledge is power. That can really help make foods taste better. And
Hmm.
that's been a big part of my role forever is, not only cooking foods that taste really good, even though they're healthy, but also teaching others how to cook foods that really taste good. And so that's been a huge part of the blood sugar method now is
Right.
we have cooking classes. We did one last night,
Nice.
tons of people on there learning how to build a balanced bowl and make really healthy ingredients to fill it with. And it was very low carb, very blood sugar friendly. But we have so many people sending in photos and saying how much their
I
husband
love that.
loved it. And, that they both enjoyed it and it led a good result. So I think that's one factor. That's one
Yeah.
trick. I have
Yeah.
more. Yeah.
Well, like I told you in the beginning, I'm a foodie too, and I have a food blog, Food Fitness by Page. And I always tell people if you're not having fun or you don't like what you're eating, you're doing something wrong because this is possible. I was filming a segment for our local TV station today on just making a steak inside for when it's cold outside and you can't use the grill and how to do it with a broiler. And I'm like, skip the marinades. The best chefs in the world are just using salt and pepper for seasoning. Broil it for 7 or 8 minutes on each side, and there's a few other tricks too, but simple. It does not have to be crazy, and you actually begin to taste food flavors for the first time. But yeah, I think clean food is not boring at all. I love what I eat. I look forward to eating it every single day. So it is possible. And I do think that's a big fear for people thinking, I'm going to have to give up Oreos. Oh no, I'm going to die. I mean, that keeps people from getting started. Jamie and I filmed a segment, a podcast last week about the things that keep people from getting started on making changes. And it all centers around fear of losing out on these foods that they think they'll die if they don't ever have again.
Yeah.
Jamie, is there anything you want to end with asking about?
Again, I would really I guess the biggest thing that again, I'm living it, so I think about this a lot. But um, the shift that women are making in their late 40s, early 50s, and maybe even sometimes in the mid 50s, they're shifting from perimenopause into menopause. And for many women that I've talked to, it seems that perimenopause has snuck up on them and they don't even realize they're in it
Yes.
until they're in it. That was my experience too. Perimenopause probably started, oh gosh, probably in my early to mid 40s, and I didn't even realize it was starting. Um, I just thought I was, oh, I had a, a weird month, or oh, I had, I was a few days or a few days later, a few days early, oh, whatever. Like I didn't really think much of it, but then you kind of look back and you see the trend, right? Life is best lived in kind of looking backwards. And it was like, oh, okay. And now I'm at the stage where it's like, hey, what's going to happen this month? Nobody knows. Like maybe it's a month, maybe it's 6 weeks, nobody knows. And then you giggle because the last time maybe you thought this, you were in your reproductive years, and it was like, oh, maybe there's a reason, right? And now you're like, oh no, there's no reason for it except for my reproductive years are over and my body is starting to show me signs. So the shift is interesting, and I'm finding, and I've talked to a lot of other people in my age range about this, that some of those pre in PMS related cravings and water retention, and they think it's not really weight gain, but it's water retention, or cravings for certain types of foods, that those now it's like an extended PMS period, right? And then sometimes you don't even actually menstruate. So I think there's a lot for women to learn about how to use food to help them weather that roller coaster, right? Because I think that our food choices at different times of our monthly cycle, or whatever that it looks like in perimenopause and menopause, we need to use foods differently throughout our cycle. Can you say anything about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot in there to say. I will disclaim that I am not going through that phase yet, so I only know what I'm learning from our studies and working with our members. We just had a meeting today where we were talking about this exact subject. So,
Yes.
but I will put in there. Um, you know, cravings are interesting because they can come and go, right? But they're not always the best thing to follow. There might be certain cravings that are
True.
body telling you you're lacking a certain nutrient, but then there are
True.
certain cravings like the craving for sugar or something like that that aren't actually going to lead to a better result after.
No. No.
Um, and so, if we can really learn what quality proteins are, and in those moments when we really want to carb, instead of reaching for a cracker, you're reaching for some nicely spiced almonds. You can lead to your body not jolting to a reaction later
That's
on.
right. That's right.
And that will connect right to that brain fog that you're feeling,
Mhm.
that, all the
And the
hormones
and the hormone shifts, and yeah,
the hormone
what
shifts, the mood, your body temperature, whatever it might be. Um, I don't think it can be 100% avoided by what you're eating, but it
no,
can be much
mitigated.
much
The
mitigated.
peaks and
Yeah, a lot.
valleys become, sort of rolling waves.
You want to get rid of those peaks and valleys, and those peaks and valleys go hand in hand with that blood sugar again, which is
Yes,
directly connected to your hormones. So,
that's right. I
so
don't
yeah,
think people understand that well enough.
well, we need to understand the basic anatomy of our body, right? And
Yes.
in the blood sugar method, our course, we go back to things that we probably learned in middle school, and it's what are carbs, what is protein, what is fiber, what is fat. And to actually shift your mind and think, oh yeah, that's what that is. Like, I
Yeah.
haven't really fully identified it over all these years. That's already really helpful. And then understanding, if you eat carbs alone, that can lead to pretty intense symptoms after. But if
Yeah.
you can eat your protein before your carb, paired with some healthy fat avocado, and that chicken protein and whatever it might be, and some roasted vegetables, fiber, then your symptoms are just going to be much smoother. And
Yes.
I think it's very similar to days during pregnancy. And, when you had those cravings and the nausea and whatnot, is they're
Mhm.
saying more and more now, woman, reach for protein, even if you want the cracker or the pasta,
Mhm.
because your nausea is just gonna be that much less afterwards.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well said. I just want to ask a quick follow-up to that.
yeah.
And I know we have just another minute here, but on GLP-1 use, from based on your bio, um, I would love, Paige and I are not necessarily recommending GLP-1s. We believe that they're, a short-term solution for an issue that only requires really a long-term approach. But we understand that we're probably that voice of ours is probably the minority right now, and that there are millions and millions of people who are taking these, and we don't see that stopping anytime soon.
Ever.
um and we also understand that our nutrition needs, those change, right? When folks choose to take those drugs, those folks, their nutrition needs change. Tell me a little bit about how you support folks who choose to use those, right? And our counterparts who I've heard all things, coaching about protein and veggies, and or just eating something that you don't get nauseous on, or your body doesn't reject. It's like, to me, a whole other language, food language, that you have to use with someone who's taking a GLP-1 versus, Paige and myself, that we're like, we just eat, we just eat. So but the game changes with a GLP-1.
The game does change with the GLP-1, but it goes back to the same exact principles.
Hmm.
Someone who's taking that wants a change,
Yes.
and they want a long-term change. And
I
you
agree.
know, taking GLP-1s is really changes your whole lifestyle, right? So whether someone enjoys that lifestyle change or not, it's maybe not something they want for the long term. And it's not maybe something they or their insurance can afford for the long term. So
True.
they're gonna have to go off of it at some point. And that's when it gets really tough, is when they go off of it, or even during it. Like you said, they're losing a lot of essential nutrients. They're often losing muscle mass and bone mass, which can be really, harmful, in the long term. And they don't really have a good plan on, how do I keep this weight loss that I just, finally gained. And so, for lack of a better term, but that's where we are taking the exact same approach as anyone else in any other situation. Is it's knowledge is power. Let's teach you about how your body works.
Beautiful.
Look at, what's affecting you, what's most important to your body, and make these little tweaks to see how it can, help you for the long term. And so even if they're not eating quite as much, or yeah, they're not feeling as good all the time, if they can at least learn how their body's working, um, hopefully learn to lift weights or get a little more movement in there and complement it, then when they get off of it, they have a little bit more of a game plan.
Yes.
We
Yes, not
we
so
agree.
far behind
Yeah.
the eight ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, we agree. If it's different for people that are using this as a tool versus just for weight loss,
Right.
the people are, we have members that are on them. We understand. We don't judge. Not up to us to decide. But all the principles that we teach in recovery apply to the same.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're using it as a tool, because I just cannot get in front of this, but I'm still going to do the single ingredient foods. I'm going to make sure I'm sleeping at night. I'm going to get my movement in. I'm going to have some spirituality. I'm going to work on my stress management. That's a completely different picture. And you made the great point of, because we need to be prepared when and if we decide to go off of these, that we've got a plan, and,
Mm-hmm.
and that things won't change much because we've already implemented these changes in our life. So love it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Anya.
Yeah.
Thank
Appreciate you being here. And if you want to find out more about us, you can find us at realfoodrecovery4u.com. That's the number 4 and the letter U. And our book is out on Amazon, Real Food Recovery. If food isn't the answer, what's the question? And we hope to see you again next time. Thanks so much, guys. And thank you again, Anya, for being here. Bye, guys.
thank you.